Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Gods based on novel. So let's start explanation. Chea, quickly, take a seat. Muyuro gently pushed Yunche into a wooden chair. Her pretty face looked as though a shower of rain had fallen upon it, and her hand still continued to gently tremble. She looked at her son, who was right in front of her, and her gaze clung to him. It did not waver for even a single moment. In his hand, he held the mirror of samsara. On his arm, the imprint of the profound handle still faintly glimmered, and his face closely resembled the face of the young Yun Qinghong. All of this was accompanied by the throbbing of her blood vessels that was so clear that it almost had substance. This was her son. Her very own flesh and blood. Chea. My child, Muyuro softly murmured, and once again, she choked up while saying, am I really not having a dream right now? They had already grown familiar with each other over the last 2 months, and Yunche had normally addressed her as mother. But right now, while facing Yunche, her mental state and emotions had reached a completely different level. Yunche opened his mouth and said softly, Mother, I am sorry. When I had first seen the both of you, I already knew that you were my birth parents, but I waited until this day to be reconciled with the both of you. Muyuro gently shook her head. All of these were not the least bit important to her. At this time and place, nothing else in the world truly mattered to her right now. And all the joy and happiness that she had felt in her life, even when added up together, could not compare to this moment. She softly replied, Husband, look at this son of ours, he is so good looking that he looks even better than you when you were young. I won't even be able to count the number of girls who have already lost their hearts to him. And he is still so obedient, so sensible and so kind-hearted. For over 20 years, not only have we not done anything for him as parents, we also caused him to suffer hardship and homelessness from the time he was born. But our son doesn't even blame us at all, Moreover, his boldness and intelligence even exceeds my own when I was his age. His medical skills are even unrivaled under heaven. He has only come back for 2 months, yet he helped us escape from this deep abyss, and even caused your big brother, who doesn't admire anyone, to want to become sworn brothers with him. He caused Duke Huai's deliberate and methodical plot to collapse in a single day and gave our Yun family hope once again. This is our son. Yun Qinghong said as he raised his head, his voice brimming with pride and excitement. Our son, Muyuro caressed Yunche's face while covering her lips in one hand. After she had finished crying, she wanted to toughen up, so as to not let her newly returned son only see her tears, but every time she tried, she just couldn't help herself. She said in a dreamlike daze, I had thought that in this entire life, I would never be able to see you again. The heavens have eyes. Yunche stretched out his hand and gently wiped away the tears on his mother's face. Mother, do not cry, our family has finally come back together again. And the both of you have recovered all that you had lost, so all of those difficulties are now in the past. Yes? Mother won't cry? It is just that Mother is far too happy, Muyuro nodded her head. She diligently attempted to wipe away all the traces of her tears, but the amount of tears she had shed was simply too much, and even after attempting to wipe them away, her face was still wet with them. Chea. Yun Qinghong softly sighed, and said in a gentle voice, all these years, how have you been? And how exactly did you come from the far-off profound sky continent to make your way here? Yun Qinghong's question severely plucked at Muyuro's heartstrings. She grabbed Yunche's hand and asked in an anxious tone, yes. Chea, have these years been treating you well? Did you suffer a lot? Muyuro's entire being was focused on her son right now, and she couldn't think of much else. But Yun Qinghong knew that because Yunche's temperament completely did not fit his age, that what Yunche had suffered was not just simply great suffering, it must have been a torment that normal people would not even be able to endure. Or else, how would he possess such an extraordinary temperament, boldness, insight and ability? Yunche faintly smiled and replied, all the events that I have lived through, I will definitely tell them to father and mother in detail. But before that, he extended a hand, grabbed Yun Xiao, and said, Father, Mother, now is the time to tell your other son of his origins. Yun Xiao isn't a little kid anymore, and he has long ago become a true man who is upright and filled with an indomitable spirit. He also has the right to know about the truth behind his birth. Yun Xiao went into a short daze, but then his eyes cleared up. He resolutely nodded his head. Father, Mother, please tell me about my origins. I also want to know where I am actually from and who my birth parents are. And please do not worry, Father and Mother, even though I am not your real flesh and blood, all these years of nurturing and love that you have given to me were definitely not false. In the future, even if I recognize my ancestors and return home to find my birth parents, the two of you will always be father and mother to me. For life. Before this, Yun Xiao still felt bewildered, hesitant and even slightly despondent. But now that he had said these words, he realized that all the apprehensiveness and bewilderment had melted away, and what replaced those feelings was calmness, relaxation, and a happiness which came from the heart because his family had finally been reunited. Even though he was not the flesh and blood of his parents, in all those years, they had regarded him as their own and had lavished him with care. Just this debt of love alone was already hard for him to repay in this life. His big brother had saved his life, had continually helped and instructed him time and time again. He was so conscientious of his feelings that he had delayed this family reunion by 2 whole months just for his sake. So even though there was no blood relation, they had treated him with a goodness that was heartfelt, so why should he even feel a sense of loss or hopelessness? The parents he loved the most had finally found the son they had worried about for all these years, so he should naturally be happy for his parents. His most respected big brother was able to reunite with his parents, so naturally he should be happy for his big brother as well. At this moment, he clearly felt that he had grown up quite a bit, and it felt like what Yun Che had described as an elevation of his spirit. Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro shared a look, and they laughed with joy and comfort. Yun Qinghong nodded his head. Good. Good child. Xiao, your birth father and I were sworn brothers as well. Moreover, he is the only confidant I have ever had in my life. So the fathers of Yu and Chea had always been closer than brothers, and our two families had long ago become as one. Yun Xiao's mouth gaped open. Father and my birth father had known each other from the start. Yes. Yun Qinghong nodded his head and he pulled Yun Xiao's arm. Xiao, sit down. Today, your mother and I will tell you everything regarding your origins. In a room which was not spacious, the four sat facing each other. And no matter whether it was Yun Qinghong, Mu Yuro or Yun Che, the feeling of family became even clearer than it had ever been before. Yun Qinghong told Yun Xiao in a sentimental and appreciative tone the story of the 3 years he and his wife had spent in the profound sky continent. He especially recounted how he had met Xiao Ying and how they had gotten to know each other, had hit off, and how they became sworn brothers. Until the part where he had managed to save their lives by putting together an escape route for them, how he had even swapped his own son with theirs. Yun Xiao just sat there and silently listened. Once Yun Qinghong had finished his tale, he sat there in a daze, but after that he said to himself in a lifeless voice, "Oh. So my homeland really is the profound sky continent." The profound sky continent is not as sinister as the illusory demon realm has made it out to be. Only a portion of the people there are truly sinister and vicious. Comparatively, the biggest difference that the illusory demon world has with the profound sky continent is the composition of races. The profound sky continent is a world where humans and beasts rule. There are very few demons there. Yun Che said. In the illusory demon realm, the profound sky continent was a heavily demonized place, and he did not wish for Yun Xiao to harbor such needless prejudice and internal conflict towards the profound sky continent because of this. Right, Yun Xiao gently nodded his head. His expression was still a bit dazed. He needed sufficient time to process and accept these things. Xiao. So my surname was actually Xiao. No wonder. Father and mother gave me the name Yun Xiao. Ho, because we had always thought of one day letting you go back to the profound sky continent to recognize your ancestors. Yun Qinghong told him while laughing. Big brother, my birth parents. Are they still well now? And are they still living in that place called Floating Cloud City? Yun Xiao asked with a hazy expression on his face. Even though Yun Che had known that this question was unavoidable and made sufficient preparation for it, once Yun Xiao asked this question, his expression instantly froze, and he could not make a single sound for the longest of times. Yun Che's expression immediately caused Yun Qinghong's expression to change as well. After he once again thought of all the tribulations that Yun Che must have suffered for all these years, his heart tightened even more. He grabbed Yun Che's shoulder and looked at him directly while asking, "How is Xiao Ying right now?" In Floating Cloud City, his Xiao family was also amongst the elite, so he is definitely living a carefree life now, right? Yun Che gave a heavy sigh. He did not answer Yun Qinghong's question. Instead, he looked at Yun Xiao and declared in a solemn tone, "Yun Xiao, remember what I had said before. A true man must calmly face the trials of fate. And anything that has happened on this earth, whether they be happy or sad. But once they have happened, you can only accept and confront them. How you accept and confront your fate will be a test of your character." Yun Xiao looked at Yun Che and both his hands quietly tightened. After a while, his eyes grew determined and he said, "Big brother, go ahead and say it. No matter what the conclusion, I will face it with calm acceptance." Yun Che nodded his head, closed his eyes, and said in a gentle voice, "Uncle Xiao, he already passed away 22 years ago." Yun Qinghong stood up in a hurry, his face had instantly turned as white as a sheet of paper. In this world, there were very few things that would be able to provoke such a strong reaction from him. But Xiao Ying was the only sworn brother he had in his life, the only true confidant he had ever had. Not only that, Xiao Ying was a man he owed his life to, and it was a debt of gratitude that was as heavy as a mountain. All those years ago, if not for him, he and his wife would not have been able to make it back to the illusory demon realm alive. But he had never once thought that he was actually already dead. That he had actually died 22 years ago. And at that time, could it be? Could it be? How did he die? How did he die? Yun Qinghong said in a quavering voice. Yun Che did not hesitate or try to conceal anything. He said straightforwardly, 22 years ago, after father and mother had escaped from Floating Cloud City, the scoundrels who were chasing after the both of you somehow found out about your interactions with Uncle Xiao. They found Uncle Xiao and they tried to force him to reveal your whereabouts, but Uncle Xiao would rather die than tell them anything, so... As a result, Yun Qinghong's entire body shook violently. After Uncle Xiao died, his wife very quickly passed away due to grief and loss. And my grandmother drowned in such sadness that her melancholy quickly turned into malady. After she had given birth to little aunt, who was 1 year younger than me, she passed away as well. I do not even remember how they looked like in life. It was grandfather alone who raised my little aunt and I together. Yun Qinghong's mouth violently trembled and both his eyes protruded. His entire body suddenly gave a violent heave as a spray of fresh blood violently spurted from his mouth. His entire body collapsed heavily to the ground. "Ah! Husband! Father!" Mu Yuro and Yun Che cried out in unison. They hurriedly went to support Yun Qinghong's body. The corner of Yun Qinghong's mouth twitched and a scarlet-red blood trail was startlingly eye-catching. His gaze lifelessly drifted to the sky and 2 fierce streams of tears poured from his eyes. It was I. It was I who caused Brother Xiao to die. It was I who caused the death of his family. It was me. It was me. The one who harmed them was me. The debt of gratitude I owe to Brother Xiao is as heavy as a mountain. But what I repaid him with was only death and destruction. Yun Qinghong's reaction was even more intense than Yun Che had expected. For a person like Yun Qinghong, even if Mount Tai fell in front of him, he would not flinch. However, the words friendship and loyalty were things that were more important to him than his life. How could he accept the fact that his best brother in this life, who had saved his family, died because of him? With even his own family having collapsed. Mu Yuro went to hold Yun Qinghong. In this world, she was the person who understood him the most, and she clearly knew how big of an impact this would have dealt to him. She did not comfort him, and merely cried silently along with him. Yun Che comforted, "Father, Uncle Xiao has already passed on for 22 years. He might have even reincarnated already and is leading a more perfect life than his previous one, so stop blaming yourself. You are the patriarch of the Yun family, the support of the whole clan, the father of me and Yun Xiao. In this world, there is nothing that can knock you down. I'm alright, 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 alright. Yun Qinghong uttered 4 alrights in a row. His eyes unfocused, his face was still pale white and he did not look one bit alright. Yun Xiao bit his lips, went forward and said loudly, "Father, don't act like this. This isn't your fault, furthermore, you are good brothers with my birth father, even if he died while saving you, I'm sure he died without any hatred or unwillingness. I believe if the one escaping at that time was my birth father, even if you knew the consequences, you would still make the same choice. Therefore, father, please don't blame yourself anymore. This is the choice my birth father made. He won't blame you, and neither would anyone else. Father, only if you live on properly and take care of yourself would you allow my birth father to rest in peace." Even though Xiao Ying was Yun Xiao's birth father, he had never seen him before, nor had his name appeared in his memory before. It was only today that he had found out about his existence. Thus, other than blood relations, he did not hold any feelings towards his birth father. Hearing that he was no longer in the living world, other than feeling an intense pain and emptiness deep within his veins, he did not feel too much sadness or, at least, it was not as overwhelming as what Yun Qinghong felt, and towards Yun Qinghong, there was the gratitude of bringing him up for more than 20 years. Yun Che did not expect that Yun Xiao would be so calm and actually console Yun Qinghong. For Yun Qinghong, Yun Xiao's consoling would triumph over any words others said to him, because Yun Xiao was Xiao Ying's descendant and was of his bloodline. His gratitude and remorse towards Xiao Ying could be repaid and placed onto Yun Xiao, and from his consoling, what he received was the same as Xiao family's forgiveness. Focus slowly returned to Yun Qinghong's eyes. He looked straight at Yun Xiao, then, his arms suddenly reached out, strongly clasping Yun Xiao's shoulders. "Xiao, you really don't blame me. I was the one who caused you to lose your birth parents. I don't." Yun Xiao shook his head without hesitation. "Even though I did lose my parents, the heavens were kind to me and gave me 2 loving parents. Towards father and mother, I only have respect and gratitude. Why would I blame you too? My birth parents in heaven would also not blame the 2 of you either." Instead, using one's own life to exchange for the life of a good brother could only bring about satisfaction and happiness. For instance, if one day, Big Brother encounters any danger and I am able to save him using my life, I would do so without hesitation. "Yun Xiao," Yun Che mumbled. Good child." Yun Qinghong patted his shoulder heavily, raised his head, and suddenly laughed loudly. "Ha ha ha ha. It's no wonder you're my son, no wonder you're Xiao Ying's son. Brother Xiao, if you can hear this from above, you must be laughing heartily as you look upon the son you had. Brother Xiao, your son is my son. Rest assured that as long as I, Yun Qinghong, still have one breath, I will not let anyone bully our son." "Xiao, thank you," Mu Yurose gently said. She knew that if Yun Xiao had not said those words, Yun Qinghong, who viewed loyalty and friendship above his life, would not be able to accept it so quickly. "Cheya, is the grandfather Xiao who brought you up still fine?" Yun Qinghong asked. "Grandfather is doing well, he's still very healthy." Sadness flashed past Yun Che's eyes. It's just that he has been living bitterly all these years. The pain of losing his son, the sadness of losing his wife. He still needed to withstand all of this while bringing me and little aunt up. Furthermore, my profound veins were crippled since I was young. I was unable to cultivate the profound, and became the family, even the whole floating cloud city's laughingstock. This caused grandfather to be ridiculed as well, causing his position within the Xiao family to drop drastically. However, even though he was burdened with all of this, grandfather had never shown any bit of hatred towards me, the culprit behind all of these, and instead showed me the same amount of love and care he showed little aunt. He brought me up, shielded me from rain and storm, taught me life lessons, and continuously consoled me, who was constantly ridiculed and bullied. All this time, he searched for the culprit who harmed Uncle Xiao while also constantly looking for famous doctors who could mend my profound veins. To be able to bring up a child like Xiao Ying, Yun Qinghong did not even think for an instant that Xiao Lai was not a great father. He sighed in deep regret. Chair, we must always remember Xiao family's kindness in our hearts and never forget it. The grandfather Xiao who raised you will forever be your grandfather. In the future, no matter how strong you become, how much achievements you obtain, you must never forget all of these. Amen. Yun Che nodded heavily. He turned towards Yun Xiao and said, Yun Xiao, even though your birth parents are no longer here with us, you still have grandfather. He's a very benevolent and noble grandfather. A few years back, when I obtained some achievements, he was finally relieved, and started having thoughts of passing on. However, when I told him that you were most likely to still be alive, he finally found hope, and all his negative thoughts disappeared. If I am able to find a way to return to the profound sky continent one day, I must bring you along to let grandfather see you. He'll definitely be happy. You still have a little aunt who, even though is 1 year younger, is still your blood-related aunt. She's mischievous and kind, and when you see her, you'll definitely be elated to have such a relative. Also, you still have a prenatal betrothal. A prenatal betrothal? Yun Xiao widened his eyes. Yun Che was a little agitated, unconsciously blurting out the matter regarding Yun Xiao and Xiao Qingyue's child marriage. Once he said it, he was perplexed, and upon seeing Yun Xiao's innocent expression, he could only smile out of embarrassment, and said, Father, Mother, I have something I forgot to tell you too. During my time in the profound sky continent, I have already gotten married. 2 times, in fact. Oh. Yun Qinghong's face revealed signs of a smile. Really? Lu Yuro uttered in shock, her expression agitated yet at the same time nervous. Does that mean I have a daughter-in-law already? Then, how old is she? Whose child is she? Is she pretty? How's her temper? Is she obedient? Is she nice to you? Lu Yuro's string of questions caused Yun Che to scratch his head and reply with a little embarrassment. When I was 16, I had already gotten married. Furthermore, actually, the person I married, her father and Uncle Xiao had decided on their marriage before she and Yun Xiao were even born, and in the end, she married me. If it were not for what happened, the person who would have married Xie Qingyu should have been Yun Xiao. Even though Yun Che did not know of this back then, he still stole Yun Xiao's fiancée. He asked, slightly perturbed, Yun Xiao, you wouldn't blame me for snatching your, child bride, right? Yun Xiao stared blankly for a while, before finally understanding what Yun Che said. He hurriedly waved it off, his face even revealing signs of panic. No, no, no. I won't. I definitely won't. I already have 7th sister. It's good that big brother married her, it's good. Yun Xiao actually looked a bit relieved, and when he's finished speaking, he even suppressed his voice to whisper to Yun Che, Big brother, the fact I actually had a fiancée, please don't tell 7th sister about it. Otherwise, she might even get angry. Oh. Of course I won't tell. Yun Che hurriedly said. He was worried for nothing. Anyway. My child bride. Oh no, I meant sister-in-law, what's her name? Is she pretty? Yun Xiao asked carefully. Even though Yun Xiao was definitely not interested in any other woman, he was curious towards something like a child bride. Yun Che rubbed his chin and replied, she's called Xie Qingyu. She's the same age as us. She looks pretty but her personality is a bit cold. Her biggest desire is the pursuit of profound power, and other than cultivating, she has no other interests. A few days after marrying me, she entered her sect, and after that, for the next few years, I did not see her much. She has most likely forgotten me by now. Oh. Yun Xiao nodded, his mind immediately conjuring up the image of a woman with lifeless eyes, a rigid face and a cold expression. As he thought about it, he secretly shrank away. His heart heaved a deep sigh of relief. Phew. Good thing Big Brother married her. If I really married such a woman, it would be so boring. 7th sister is still the best, with her cute voice, her cute eyes, her cute temper. She's even cute when she's angry. Amen? Looks pretty? Even if she was, how could she compare in looks to my 7th sister? Yun Xiao resolutely thought. A person that was able to let Xiao Ying arrange a prenatal betrothal would definitely not be any bit lacking. Tears welled in Mu Yuro's eyes once more. I never thought that my son has already made a family. Yun Che's lips trembled, but he still did not say the fact that he already had 2 wives. Furthermore, he also did not talk about having a child with a woman who was not his wife, because saying those would be causing them to be even more concerned. Cheya, what happened to your profound veins? Who cured them for you? Yun Qinghong asked the question that had been in his mind for a long time. Yun Che replied, I have 2 masters. One of them taught me medical arts. The other helped me reconstruct my profound veins and trained me when I was 16. Yun Qinghong was deeply moved. At the age of 22, your medical skills already far exceed the best doctor in illusory demon realm. And if you reconstructed your profound veins at the age of 16, then you have only cultivated for 6 years. You reach the sky profound realm with 6 years of cultivation, yet can easily defeat an early stage overlord. Your teachers must be extraordinary geniuses. His medical saint master was indeed an extraordinary genius. But as for Jasmine, she was simply an incomprehensible monster. My 2 masters both changed my destiny. Without them, I might not even be alive now. Yun Che sighed with emotion. After lamenting, he remembered the most important thing he should tell his parents, and he said promptly, Father, Mother, didn't you ask me where the patriarch's crest came from? When I was in the profound sky continent, I saw Grandfather. Yun Che's words gave Yun Qinghong a shock. He shuddered violently, and his voice cracked. Grandfather? Which grandfather? Which grandfather? My biological grandfather, your father, the illusory demon realm's demon king. Yun Songhai. Grandfather gave me the patriarch's crest, and told me to bring it back to the Yun family one day. Ah! Mu Yuro gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. Whoosh! The air in front of Yun Che shifted violently as Yun Qinghong rushed to him as though he had teleported. Yun Qinghong couldn't take into consideration of his strength because of how on edge he was. He grabbed Yun Che's arms so tightly that he almost snapped them. You really saw your grandfather? Where did you see him? Where is he now? How is he doing? Xiao Ying's death made his mind chaotic, and now he suddenly heard news about his father. Yun Qinghong's soul had probably never had such extreme ups and downs in his life. 100 years. For 100 years, he had never seen his father again. He didn't even know if his father was dead or alive. Yun Che knew that Yun Qinghong must have wanted to know of his father's whereabouts and well-being even in his dreams. When Yun Che thought about the 16 months he spent under the Sword Management Terrace at Heavenly Sword Villa, he felt embittered in his heart, and he narrated slowly, not long after my profound veins were reborn and I started to cultivate profound energy, I joined Blue Wind Nation's Blue Wind Profound Palace and represented the Blue Wind Imperial family for the ranking tournament among the large forces in the nation, and this Blue Wind ranking tournament was precisely held in Heavenly Sword Villa. Heavenly Sword Villa, this was a place Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro would never forget even if they die. Back then, they risked their lives, used the profound handle soul search on a person from mighty Heavenly Sword region, and found out that Yun Songhai was not dead, but was actually being imprisoned. The location of where he was being held was in Blue Wind Nation. Heavenly Sword Villa. Yun Che immediately retold the whole story, how he joined the ranking tournament, how after it ended he was brought to see the demon sealing ritual by Ling Kuan who was from mighty Heavenly Sword region, how the demon went crazy because of Ling Kuan's provocation, how Xie Yuanbao was in danger and how he was sealed under the Sword Management Terrace with the demon because he wanted to save Xie Yuanbao. Back then, I never would have imagined that the demon was actually my grandfather. Grandfather's body was bound by the meteorite chain, his profound strength was suppressed by the Heaven's Might soul-suppressing formation, under such harsh restrictions, he could only control his profound handle, and he was further sealed underground where there was no daylight at all by a sword called Heaven's Punishment. I got beaten up by Grandfather until I was half dead. After I healed, I kept training myself just so I could kill Grandfather and get out of there. Until one day, Grandfather recognized the mirror of samsara that I took out. Then, he forced out my profound handle, and we conducted the blood paternity test. That was when I knew he was my grandfather. Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro stared absent-mindedly into space for a long time. More than 20 years ago, even though they found out where Yun Sanghai was, they almost lost their lives without even being able to get close, let alone to see him. They could not imagine what Yun Che did to find him, and now, they heard the answer, the whole story. It was all so bizarre, so odd, that they couldn't believe it. Heaven's will, it must be heaven's will. The heavens are not blind, they arranged the two of you to meet in a strange faraway realm. Yun Qinghong was so excited that his eyes were full of tears. On one hand, there was the son who was drifting in the profound sky continent, and on the other hand, there was the father who was imprisoned in the profound sky continent. Neither of them knew about one another's existence, but it was so coincidental and bizarre that they found each other. Destiny, it really was destiny. Yun Che continued speaking. After I met my grandfather, he told me my biological parents' names and a lot of things about the illusory demon realm. In the time that we spent together, he instructed me in my cultivation, and used his profound handle to fight with me day and night. In the end, he even risked using all of his strength to awaken my profound handle, and gave me the thing that he was protecting with his life for 100 years, to bring back to the illusory demon realm. What happened after that? If you escaped, did your grandfather escape with you? Where is he now? Yun Qinghong asked impatiently. Yun Che's face grew dark. He looked down, and said softly. The place where grandfather and I were held was suppressed by the Heaven's Punishment Sword. We could not break out relying solely on my strength back then. The meteorite chain that was on grandfather, the Heaven's Punishment Sword, and the Heaven's Might soul-suppressing formation were all bound to grandfather. After grandfather gave me the thing he was protecting with his life, he killed himself to set me free. Yun Qinghong was so shocked, he fell back a couple of steps as if he was struck by lightning. Mu Yuro closed her eyes and covered her mouth as tears silently trickled down her face. Just as well, Yun Qinghong murmured soullessly. He was imprisoned in a place without daylight for 100 years. He had suffered too much. Just as well. Now, he doesn't have to suffer anymore. He is free. He can rest in peace. Before his death, he was able to find a trustworthy person to pass on his mission, see his own grandson, and he saved his grandson's life with his own life. When my father passed away, he must have been smiling. Yes, Yun Che nodded his head. Grandfather died while smiling. Yun Qinghong closed his eyes as tears rolled down across his cheeks, leaving a watery trail. Died while smiling, this was the only thing that could ease his sorrow. I brought back grandfather's body. Yun Che backed away a little. Following the sky-poisoned pearl's flicker of light, the coffin of eternity appeared before them. After acquiring the coffin of eternity, where Honga was asleep for however many years, he put Yun Sanghai's body in it. Because he was laying in the coffin of eternity, even if thousands and millions of years passed by, nothing would be damaged or changed. The second it closed up, it was as though the time inside was eternally frozen. For a long while, Yun Qinghong lost his focus as he stood beside the coffin of eternity. He pressed his hand on the cold body, and fell down slowly, until he kneeled on the ground heavily. In his memory, his father was a prestigious demon king of the illusory demon realm. He was a vigorous spirit that shined so brightly. There was never evidence of him growing old, and he always liked to keep himself at his youngest state. When they stood together as father and son, they looked just like brothers around the same age. But inside the coffin of eternity, laid an old man who looked like he had 1 foot in the grave. Skinny as a bag of bones, face was dry and withered, his hair, beard, and eyebrows were all messy and white. He looked just like a ferocious devil. If it weren't for the contour of his face, he could never believe that this was his father, but what he couldn't imagine more was how much suffering he had gone through for him to become like this. Yun Qinghong's whole body was shivering as he said the word, father. It was as painful as fresh blood. Yun Che looked up, and said quietly, bringing him back to his homeland must also be one of grandfather's wishes, but please endure your son's stubbornness, and delay grandfather's burial. I can't let grandfather die for nothing, even more so, I can't let grandfather die with criminal accusations still on his back. Yun Qinghong kept his head low, as his entire body trembled. He bit his teeth together so clearly and loudly, it was hard to listen to. Sigh, Yun-Che's chest felt heavy. Father, if you want to cry, just cry. Only your family is here. You are my father, and Yun Xiao's father, but also grandfather's son. Yun-Che's words collapsed the front-line defense Yun Qinghong had been trying to hold up. The extremely sorrowful grieving cry that came from the Yun patriarch resounded loudly. From birth to now, this was the first time he cried so carelessly. Yun-Che grabbed Yun Xiao and walked outside. From walking into walking out, it felt like a complete different world. Are you unsettled? Yun-Che looked at him and asked. Yun Xiao just shook his head and said, I knew from the beginning that this day would come eventually. I always thought that when this day came, I wouldn't know what to do at all, but now I feel like I'm even more safe and settled. Me too. Yun-Che smiled and said, the reason is simple. Even though we both used to have a home, our hearts do not belong there. But now, I feel like I found my home. And as for you, you found out about your background, and you didn't lose the parents who raised you for over 20 years. Of course you feel more safe and settled. The only thing that I didn't think of, is that things would get so complicated. It feels like I'm listening to a bizarre story. Yun Xiao sighed with emotion. Life, in many cases, is far more bizarre and remarkable than made-up stories. Yun-Che looked at him, and suddenly said, Yun Xiao, since you found out about your background, you should change your name. How about Xiao Yun? Ah? Yun Xiao paused for a second, and agreed right away, all right. From now on, my name is Xiao Yun. Even when I'm in public, I will call myself Xiao Yun. Or else, my parents who are looking at me from above the heavens would scold me for being unfilial. Ha ha ha. Yun-Che laughed loudly. After this entire day of fateful twists and mental breakdowns, he truly felt that Yun Xiao had matured a lot. Perhaps it was because after knowing where he came from, he released the stress, the worry, and the confusion that he always carried, and found a clear-cut life goal. The two of them stood at the entrance of the backyard, just in case someone would get close and disturb Yun Qinghong. They stayed silent for a while. Suddenly, Yun-Che asked, Xiao Yun, have you ever seen the Little Demon Empress? Yes, I have. Xiao Yun nodded. Actually, all these years, the Little Demon Empress came and visited Father a lot of times, and she came alone and quietly every time. No one else knows about this. It seems like the Little Demon Empress trusts and respects Father greatly. And Father also seems to be very loyal to the Little Demon Empress, or rather, the Demon Emperor clan, Yun-Che muttered. What kind of person is the Little Demon Empress? How should I put this? Xiao Yun thought seriously for a while, and said with hesitation, actually, I've only seen the Little Demon Empress for a few times, and I've never really looked at her directly, because every time I face her, I feel a bit scared. Scared? Yun-Che's eyebrow raised. The Little Demon Empress aura is really scary, Yun Xiao described. Even when I was far away from her, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Her eyes were even scarier. I never had the guts to look into her eyes directly. Even if she merely glanced at me, I would feel chills go through my entire body. Her facial expression was also the same. No one seemed to have ever seen her smile. Her whole face was like it was frozen. Oh, that horrifying? Yun-Che's eyes widened. Xiao Yun tried very hard to think of more information about the Little Demon Empress and said, the Little Demon Empress was always in grey clothing, not light grey, but the kind of grey that was very dark and dead. Oh? When Father and I talked about the Little Demon Empress, he mentioned that she was very cruel. Hundreds of years ago, when the Little Demon Empress got her position, a lot of people were against her because she was a female. Many of those people were killed, and a bunch of those people were killed by her. After that, everyone shivers when they see her, and no one dared to disobey her anymore. That does sound cruel. Yun-Che's eyes slightly widened, and his brain was painting the image as Xiao Yun described the Little Demon Empress. Her stares were like knives, her terrifying appearance. She might even be ugly, with no emotions on her face. Her aura was so cold that it could pierce your bones, and she was in a dead grey robe, a middle-aged woman. After he finished imagining, Yun-Che couldn't help but shiver. because he thought about those reanimated gals of legends. They were so similar that they were almost 90% alike. Back when Yunche listened to Yun Qinghong talk about the stories of the past, he remembered that he clearly mentioned that the little demon emperor disappeared the night he married the little demon empress. He thought that it was strange back then, even if the little demon emperor was desperate to save his father and his heart was bitter, would it kill him to leave 2 or 3 days later? He just had to run away to profound sky continent at this crucial time for a suicide mission. Now he suddenly understood, not having the desire to get married when he didn't know if his father was dead or alive was just an excuse. His real intention was to run away. If I were married to this woman who was that scary, even just hearing about her, I would run away too. Amen? That's not right. The little demon emperor was the demon emperor's heir, the master of the illusory demon realm. With his identity, all of illusory demon realm's women should be free pickings. What kind of woman couldn't he find? Why did he choose some scary woman who sounded like a reanimated gal as his demon empress? Could it be that the little demon empress was from a prominent family? But that still doesn't make sense. In illusory demon realm, what family background could be greater than the illusory demon royal family, and the little demon emperor was the illusory demon royal family's first heir? No matter what, he shouldn't have to tolerate this. Xiao Yun, what is the family background of the little demon empress? Why did the little demon emperor marry her back then? Yunche asked out of curiosity from his heart. It's because the little demon emperor can only marry her. Xiao Yun's answer stunned Yunche. Can only marry her? What does that mean? Big brother, I can't believe you didn't know that. Oh? Xiao Yun suddenly realized, right. I subconsciously forgot it again. Big brother, you are from the profound sky continent. Here in illusory demon realm, no one would ever ask a question like that. Xiao Yun started explaining, the demon emperor can have multiple wives, but the demon empress was set ahead of time for him. Because the demon emperor's bloodline must be preserved as complete and perfect, the demon empress who marries the demon emperor must also have the purest demon emperor's bloodline, so their offspring would continue to have the most complete demon emperor's bloodline and inherit the demon emperor position. This is a basic principle that the demon emperor's bloodline had, which could never be broken. As for the children that were born by other wives, they would be bestowed the title of duke, and can intermarry with other families, but can never inherit the position of the emperor. But, I heard father said, that the demon emperor's bloodline would consciously not let the bloodline outflow. So in the recent thousands of years, the previous demon emperors rarely married other wives besides the demon empress, and even if they married, they would purposely not have any children with them. So now, the illusory demon royal family does not have a grand prince anymore. The Duke Huiyi that we saw today, and his father Duke Huai, dukes who have the closest relationship with the demon emperor's bloodline. However, even though that is so, the demon emperor's bloodline in their veins are just too light. Xiao Yun's explained very clearly, but Yunche, who was listening, was stunned. He asked while trying to sound out, if what I know is correct, the demon emperor's bloodline seems to only have one bloodline. If this bloodline were to be kept pure, then the demon empress must also have the purest demon emperor's bloodline, so does that mean, the little demon emperor and the little demon empress are? Oh, the little demon empress is the little demon emperor's older sister, Xiao Yun said casually. Yunche, at $%. Big brother, what's wrong? Your face suddenly became so strange. Xiao Yun seemed to not really understand why Yunche's face was twitching like that. The demon emperor's bloodline has been like this for generations. When Yunche spoke, even wind was coming out from the gaps in his teeth. Yeah. Xiao Yun nodded, like it was something normal. His facial expression was as normal as ever. Each generation of demon emperor and demon empress would give birth to a son and a daughter, and those son and daughter would become the next generation's demon emperor and demon empress. There are a lot of other families like this, especially those that can pass down their bloodline power. To prevent the bloodline power from passing on to outsiders, it is forbidden to intermarry with another family. The inheritance of the patriarch must not mix. That is the clan's greatest taboo. We, the Yun family, are not as strict, because the men can pass down the profound handle to the next generation, but not the women. So women in the Yun family can intermarry another family, but men cannot leave the Yun family and marry into another family. Yun Che stared straight at Xiao Yun for a long while, and said slowly, in the profound sky continent, blood relatives cannot marry each other. Why? Xiao Yun's eyes widened. Marrying the person closest to you can make sure that the offspring also has the purest bloodline. The profound sky continent is so strange. From the view of the people of profound sky continent, you are the strange ones. Yun Che gnashed his teeth and thought. This is called cultural differences. That's right, a real-life example of cultural differences. No wonder the little demon emperor would marry the terrifying little demon empress. It's because he didn't have a choice. Seems like it's also not easy being the illusory demon emperor. Now that the little demon emperor is dead, the one who has the purest bloodline in the whole illusory demon realm would be the little demon empress. It is impossible for the little demon empress to give birth to the next generation alone. That means, starting from the next generation after the little demon empress, the pure demon emperor's bloodline would not exist anymore. Yun Che mumbled and said, on top of that, with the little demon empress being a woman, no wonder those dukes would spawn disloyalty, with even some of the guardian family's loyalty are starting to collapse. Yes, that's right, Xiao Yun nodded. Father said this is the biggest crisis the demon emperor's clan has faced since 1,000,000 years ago. The little demon emperor was too rash. His eagerness to save his father and take back the demon emperor's seal was understandable, but he should know that the safety of his life determines the whole demon emperor's clan's heir and future. If he died, the illusory demon realm would no longer have a pure demon emperor's bloodline. The demon emperor died in profound sky continent. My grandfather and Yun family's top 10 fighters also died there. He should have known that he would surely die if he went to profound sky continent alone. If he really wanted to suicide, at least wait until the little demon empress bore a son and a daughter. Rather than being rash, it was more like being stupid. Yun Che's eyebrows suddenly raised. Wait. When he first arrived at the illusory demon realm, it didn't take effort for him to think about the serious and irreparable consequence, so how could the little demon emperor not think of it? Being the heir to the demon emperor's bloodline, the little demon emperor should naturally value passing down the bloodline more than anyone else. That was something more important than himself, and 1,000,000,000 times more important than his father's life. Then why did he go and suicide so stupidly? A possibility flashed across Yun Che's mind. Is it possible that the little demon emperor went to profound sky continent for some other hidden reason? Or, he didn't actually die in profound sky continent? Is the knowledge that everyone has in illusory demon realm all fake because someone made it up to cover something up? After all, the little demon emperor disappeared on their newly wedded night, and left a note informing people that he departed for the profound sky continent, but no one actually saw him leave the profound sky continent. No one even saw with their own eyes if he actually left. If the little demon emperor was not a complete moron, then there was a huge possibility that there was something hidden, or some conspiracy. Yun Chen eyebrows tightened, and thought back to when he was first at Heavenly Sword Villa. Back then, when Ling Kuan used his words to provoke grandfather Yun Sanhai, he seemed to have mentioned the little demon emperor. Yun Che closed his eyes, and concentrated on remembering what Ling Kuan said back then. It's no harm for me to tell you again that your demon emperor had already died a long time ago. Died under hands of our mighty Heavenly Sword Regent Sword Master and Sun Moon Divine Hall's Heavenly Monarch. Your pitiful demon emperor who had just ascended to the throne, overestimated his own abilities and wanted to take revenge for his father. TSK, TSK, his cries were so pitiful when dying. Right now, the entire illusory demon realm is supported by a little demon empress. Yun Che. Yun Che had an extremely strong memory. When he focused and thought back, he could make sure he didn't miss a single word. Ling Kuan talked about the little demon emperor's pitiful death, but he didn't mention where he died, or how. At least, he never said he died in the profound sky continent. Xiao Yun didn't notice Yun Che's sudden facial changes. He nodded and said, the little demon emperor was really too rash. I heard that the day he was married, he drank a lot of alcohol, and he didn't use his profound strength to resolve his drunkenness, so he lost his mind after he drank, and acted rashly. That could be, because he didn't know how to face the little demon empress on their wedding night. I heard my father said, that the little demon emperor was actually very afraid of the little demon empress. Afraid? To be accurate, it should be respectful and afraid, Xiao Yun said. I heard father say that the little demon emperor had an air of arrogance, but was also really compassionate. As soon as he was born, he had a fearless personality. Even the previous demon emperor couldn't control him, but the only person he was scared of was his sister, Oh, who was also the little demon empress. Little demon empress' profound energy cultivation was always stronger than his, and from youth, she was domineering person. Every time the little demon emperor didn't behave himself, she would beat him up until he obeyed. Even when the little demon emperor saw the previous demon emperor, he would be bossy and tyrannical, but when he saw his sister, he would be docile and obedient, and wouldn't even dare to breathe. Even our father would also be well behaved in front of the little demon empress. I heard from mother once that back then, father and the little demon emperor went to the northern passes on the spur of the moment, and disappeared for a month without a word. When they came back, the little demon emperor was beaten up by the little demon empress, and father was beaten up along as well, with more than 30 bones broken, and had to lie in bed for half a month. So cruel. Yunche listened with his heart jumping and his skin crawling. But even though the little demon empress was always dominant, her personality wasn't extreme, and it was hard not to respect and approve of her. When she was about 20 years old, she took over the illusory demon royal family's affairs, and almost everything was taken care of perfectly. Even the 12 guardian family's patriarchs were respectful to her, until the news of the death of the previous demon emperor broke out. And after little demon emperor passed away, her personality changed completely. Her aura, the expressions in her eyes, her actions, all became terrifying. Whenever she appeared, everyone became silent, and it seemed like during these past few hundred years, she had never smiled again. Having just lost her father, and her brother, or husband, it would be strange if she didn't resent or get mad. Yunche thought, and said, her family is dead. Left alone with the purest demon emperor's bloodline, she not only bore the pain of losing her family, but also bore all the responsibility. At the same time, she is a woman. To inherit the position of emperor, and be pressured by a number of rejections, by political pressure, by gossip, that could not be easy. In that situation, if she wasn't strong and malicious, let alone 100 years, she wouldn't even have lasted for 10 years. Amen. Xiao Yun nodded. Father said the same thing. Father rarely compliments anyone, but these years, father complimented the little demon empress many times. At the same time, he also worried many times for the demon emperor clan's future. After all, after the little demon empress, there would never be another one with the demon emperor's pure bloodline. Whatever, that's the little demon empress problem. Not mentioning the future, it's uncertain that she would still be the little demon empress even a month from now. That Duke Huai was not afraid to run rampant, and he also doesn't seem to be afraid of the little demon empress knowing about it. Seems like he is not only ambitious, but also very confident. Yunche said, curling his lips. 1 month later at the Demon Empress Grand Ceremony, I should be able to see the legendary little Demon Empress. Yunche lowered his eyebrows and muttered, your attitude will determine whether or not I return that item to you, or else, even though this is grandfather's dying wish, I will disobey. I hope you will not disappoint me. The big secret that grandfather wanted me to tell you, I will have to see if you have the ability to make me want to tell you myself. As for the Mirror of Samsara, sorry, I'm not going to return it to your Demon Emperor clan, because that already belongs to me. Episode 94 is end here. Next episode coming tomorrow. Thanks for watching.